Hello, we are live. Hi, everybody.
Yay.
Second episode going live today. And today we have a very exciting topic. And it's all going to be about aliens, angels, and then them working with us. I love it. But this is one of our favorite topic. And today, let me going to introduce you, those who are joining us today.
Oh, yeah, for the first time, we should introduce ourselves.
Exactly. We should always introduce ourselves. I'm Teresa. I'm the founder of Holistic Clinic, and together with me today, I have Sydney.
Hi, I'm Sydney. I'm in Singapore. I'm one of the channelers that works with Holistic Clinic.
And I'm Annie. I live in Germany, but originally from Canada, also working for the Solistic Clinic.
So awesome. So all of us have experiences working with aliens, working with angels, and all that. But first, I want to put out a disclaimer out there. Like whatever we're sharing here today is from our own personal experience. You can
Yeah.
take it as a story, or you make it, but definitely do your own research. You may have your own experience, so don't take our words only, right? And also for all the work that we do, while we are spiritual, we are really non-religious. Like
Mm.
there's no endorsement of spiritual beliefs or spirit or religion beliefs and all that. So I just want to put the disclaimer out there. So back to the topic. Um, you like such a broad topic.
It's so big. Where do you want to start?
Exactly. Maybe we start, right? Like your first experience when you're channeling the aliens.
Yes. Okay,
Or
I do have one.
okay, what? Before you start, I just want to clarify first. Like when we refer to the aliens generally, we want to define what is classified as aliens, right? So extraterrestrial beings, right? They are seen as beings from a different dimension, from a different planet, with advanced or have technologies and knowledge, right? So that's
Mm.
how we define the aliens. Okay, go, Sydney.
I wanted to share this one just because my my whole concept and experience around like aliens or whatever was zero, and I didn't even consider it as something. I was always like, oh yeah, there aren't any aliens. Um, but there was one particular session we were doing early on where I felt a being coming through. And because this was early on in my channeling journey, I had plenty of resistance to like letting things through. So I could feel this energy coming through and trying to force my mouth to make the shape of their name. And I could feel it coming through like Ash Tar. And I heard that and I was thinking, Ash Tar? What is that? What is an ash and a tar? Are you and I'm thinking and then I'm like having this interaction of like, are you sure that's your name? And being is like, yes, that is my name. You can say it. Like please just let me like come through. And I kind of thought to the being, I was like, well, okay, but if it's not your name, don't blame me. And I was like, here we go. And I just said it. I was like, I'm Commander Ashtar, came out. And then and then Teresa was like, oh, hi, good to see you again. And I was like, oh,
It's
I
like,
guess the other channelers have channeled this being before with Teresa too.
Yeah, Commander Ishtar is amazing. He has come and supported and helped us on so many occasions. A little bit history of what we know of Commander Ashtar is that whatever imagery we see him on the Google or on the internet, he really doesn't look like that. He actually created this image for us so that we are able to find him more relatable, blonde, and with a Star Command uniform. But yeah, really, he doesn't look like that. He is a captain or commander on a spaceship, uh, on a different dimension, actually, a few galaxy away from us. But Eddie, you also channeled Commander Ashta. What
yes.
was your experience of Commander Ashta?
He's a specific energy. I don't know when I don't know. Sometimes I do feel like he has a I don't know, some aliens or some nations, they do have like humor, but when is this Ashtar that I always find is like it's really not that he's a commander, but you feel like it's like a typical energy of somebody who has like he has a mission and he's got work to do. So when I feel his energy and I say his name, like, okay, we're in business here, and it's probably the reference I have to. And so when usually when I pick up the energy, it's like it's okay, following through. And I'm not gonna wait, so I'm saying it right away. And usually I interrupt people. I'm just like really like define energy, like really on point.
Yeah.
But yeah, but I like it. But like that it's mostly he's meant for business, and it's mostly affiliated with healing energy, and and usually when he showed up to our team, it's always when we have like big topics. We're talking about like wars, or when we're talking about Gaia, Mother Gaia, and other things. So yeah, that was not just like yeah, like
I remember when Angelica, one of our youngest channeler, first channeled him. Now, when he comes through Angelica, he's actually very humorous.
I was just about to
So,
say.
yeah, he is actually very humorous when he comes through Angelica. But when he comes through all the other channelers, I guess because we were working, then that's when it's all the business. But I remembered when he first came through, and I was so curious about his spaceship, where is it parked, or what do they do, what sort of information do they gather. So the few things that I gathered of like they have spaceship, and he's not the only spaceship all around our planets or other galaxies, or observing and gathering information. So they tend to be data gatherers and step in to support us when we need help. And I was also curious, like, what do they do on the spaceship? Like, do you have to do like duties and stuff like that? And I laughed when he said that, yeah, they have to do cleaning duties as well. They have a lot of dust on the spaceship. I thought, like, okay, that's not something we ever like considered when we were working with them, that they actually do have to keep up with hygiene.
Well, like alternate dimensional dust.
Right?
wow.
What?
So that was interesting. Yeah. So yes, Commander Ashta, one of our favorite aliens.
Yeah.
I'd like to be there next time. He's so humorous because, as a Canadian, we love humor. So
yeah,
just like so hey, Ashtar, like just a request next time.
Yeah, but
yeah.
there were times when he was busy and I asked for his help, and he's like, "We're really busy." Like, okay, but we really need help, and he always finds help for us, so that's really nice. Okay, so for him, I classify him under the star nations, right? And for people, they may be curious about like what exactly are the aliens, or why there are certain groups that we call star nations. So I guess generally, I would say the star nations work with us to support the development of humanity, and also help support us in our journey of ascension. And really, they consider themselves as light workers as well. There are also the other aliens that we have come across that they don't see themselves as part of star nations, right? So we're referring to, say, the reptilians or the Greys, right? And we have come across them and seen some of the work that they do. So here is a good segue to talk about some of the star nations each and every one of you have a very deep impression about.
So sort of using the topic of Commander Ashta as the stepping point. Like Annie said, his energy feels very specific. Like, okay, like this is a specific being coming through, but oftentimes when we end up channeling, sometimes it feels more like a collective, and they'll come through and say like, we are the Star Nations, or we are the Arcturians or the Pleiadians, and then it feels a lot less personal channeling that, because it feels almost like you're getting a group of people's collective understanding about something coming through, right? It's like an official statement from the company kind of thing.
Mm, yeah, that's very interesting. Yes, indeed. Annie?
I like the way you describe that. Well, for my case, I had more experience so far with a lot of angels, but to the topic aliens, that was also for me a new a new experience since a year. So that was a one of my biggest surprise too. But mostly, I would say Andromedans. I always say not.
Ooh.
It was like one after we did a session together, and it was a personal one. It was a personal healing sessions, and as we did that, I totally got in tune. And like that, oh my God, I explained everything, like who I am, the way I talk, the way I'm super slow in things. And and I remember they did mention of like slow is fast. It's like, okay, gotcha.
Mm.
So some of their energies for me, it really feels like a family.
For
There's just this connection. I feel like they're watching over me. I do feel like this bond is not just in channeling sessions. So I do feel like that their presence, like sometimes
I'm really
it's
glad you mentioned Andromedans. And exactly to what you say, that they are very slow in coming across and bringing a message through. Um, but they often work in the background. They don't really like to step forward and be actively in the forefront, but they do work with a lot of star nations at the back. And I remember when we started doing a lot of healing work, it was the Arcturians, the Pleiadians, and the Syrians who were very active coming forward to say, hey, I'm here to help you. Hey, we're here and all that, right? But the Andromedans, you sense them, but they don't really step forward and say that, I'm here, right? They seldom do that until I reach out and call for their help, because they actually do and contributed a lot to the tweaking of our DNA and to our blueprint. And interesting enough, I remember when we first channeled the Andromedans, it was because of a piece of rock. And this is actually a piece of rock that was chipped off the mega rocks. And I don't have the name with me right now of this forest in Bosnia. Yeah, I need to, like, later when you guys are talking, I'll just gonna do the research, because it is this huge mega rocks, right? Or balls of rocks. And over the years, people were very curious and they've been chipping those rocks away. And I visited that forest. I felt the rocks and I felt the different energies from each and every piece of them. And during the channeling of one of these piece of rock, that's when it says that it's actually from Andromeda. And it came in a spaceship to help anchor some energies on Earth to bring life. So as we all know and we're familiar that we work with a lot of frequencies, right? And they bring in different frequencies that will support different types of life forms to take shape and be in a space to be able to thrive. So that was the very beginning of Andromeda's contribution to Earth. So one of the other things to mention about the star nations is that a lot of our DNA were actually contributed by them. So that's why they're very familiar if we need to tweak our DNA, or we have a blueprint, or they need to go in to take a look at what's actually happening. Yeah. So thanks for bringing up about Andromeda. I mean, like, they are really a silent back-end worker, or like how they support us in our growth for humanity. Which others do you have a very deep impression about?
Oh, I just I think the whole thing with the DNA stuff is really interesting, because if we like take a physical DNA test, it's not something that's gonna come up, you know? It's like, okay, you'll get information about like where your ancestors were from around Earth, physically speaking. So this is like one of the things that I'm curious about, where I'm like, when we talk about, or rather when they come through and they talk about having worked on our DNA, do we know any reason why it's like, um, doesn't seem to then correspond physically, or like what's up with that?
Hmm. I think a lot of our strands of our DNA, like the double helix and all that, each of
Mm,
them have got little codes. And we, I remember like recently I had to work at a celestial level to ask them to upgrade our soul
mm,
print and also to help us with some of our DNA coding. And it is so fine. It is so fine because any change that is too drastic, we will actually feel it. We'll feel sick. And it will actually throw our ascension journey off course. So all of
mm.
us sign up to come to Earth for an ascension experience, right? For an experience of learning about who we are. Like one of the things that a lot of us sign up for Earth experience, right? Like going to Universal Studio, is to see and get a certain experience. And what is exciting about those experiences is one, learning more about ourselves, learning how we react, how we are able to manage an outcome based on our belief, based on what we are prior knowledge. And we find it very interesting and very exciting, at least from the heavens view when we're planning.
Yeah, yeah, when we're planning, not not
We're
not
planning,
on
not when
Earth where
we're
you're like,
living
I
through
didn't
it, right?
choose this.
Exactly. Especially when we're planning, because I've met enough clients and then their soul say, yeah, I actually did plan to have eczema. I did plan to have like born without limbs. I'm like, okay, because from that heaven's view, they really only see maybe 10 minutes of experience, and they really want and desire that experience. So the soul journey is also directly related to our DNA and then what we are born with. So they cannot do too obvious a tweak because then that will rob us of our experience. But I'm not too sure if that really answers your question, Sydney. Because
Yeah, I think it's like one of those things where if we're curious about it, we'll probably wanna like do a little session with the other channelers and everything and like look into it. But I think it just seems like maybe it's like not even like we're not even touching things physically.
no,
Yeah.
we don't. We are touching a lot of things from an energetic level,
Hmm.
which is also why learning about our physical body, our mental body, our emotional body, and all the other seven bodies is where they will also start doing a lot of tweaks and healing from,
Mm.
when we call upon the star nations to support us. So we talked about Andromedans. I will also say that in a lot of our healing, the Syrians will come through,
Yeah.
and Syrians have been very active on Earth, especially in Egypt. So there's a lot of things that they left behind in Egypt were from their Syrians planet influence that they brought onto Earth. And so they often come to support us because from the very beginning, they've been here to support us in terms of our spiritual growth. As you know, that the ancient Egypt was very spiritual, where we learned a lot about Hathor, about Isis, about Sekhmet, Ra, and all these gods that were present in Egypt, who will continue to support us and help us in our work. And then the others are definitely the Arcturians and the Pleiadians. Any unique, I guess, unique things about them that stand out for you about let's start with Arcturians.
Ooh, Arcturians. I
I
feel
felt
like
like,
yeah, what's up?
sorry, I felt like they were mostly present when we're talking about the physical aspect, physical and mental all combined when we have a clients, or that they usually pop up when it's like a health issue related to other, I was going to say dimensions or any other problem, but specifically, I thought they usually pop up. That was my experience. I might be wrong. Like I didn't know Ashtar had humor, and I'm still learning things today. So I'm glad I'm here at this live session. So I feel like, and what I'm feeling from that type of energy, they're mostly there to, yes, very willing to help, but also very methodologic, I would say. And when it means like changing, I feel like they're doctors. I don't know how to describe them better. Like I know the Pleiadians, like, but they're really, when it's something that's very multidimensional, and they're usually there. It's like when it's very something like hard to handle, I would say, or like where we need to really, really healing stuff, they're usually there, the first on the row, isn't it? Well, that was my experience.
They do show up a lot. I do think they show up a lot. I think did you say like, your experience is that they tend to be pretty like methodical? I feel like they like, if I'm thinking in terms of, it's hard to remember stuff from sessions, but
yeah.
I feel like they often come in as well to learn from the different cases as well if we have something really unique. And obviously all of them show up, but I feel like I've seen them a lot coming in to basically say that they will study something or like tweak their model based off studying the information that they gather. So it feels like very structured and organized.
They are.
Yeah.
They are. I would chime in to say that every time we were working with Arcturians, they come in teams of either 3 or 5 odd numbers. And it's quite interesting. Like, I remember I had one case where her twin flame is actually left in Arcturus. And that's really difficult because as Arcturian, you function in a team of 3 or 5. So she is the only one who came to Earth, and the other 2 were left in Arcturus. So she actually will always feel lonely. That's the yearning that her love is never going to be complete because her twin flames are actually in Arcturus because they are functioning in 3 or 5. And when they do come in teams, you will, like when I see them coming through to energy healing for us, I will see blue, like tiny little blue energies bobbing up and down, and they work very quickly and they talk among themselves telepathically. And every time they communicate with us, there will be one representing the group and representing the team. So they tend to work on our physical bodies. So let's just say if I need to balance hormones, or I need to say check. I mean, I remember there was a case where this woman had a car accident, and the doctors are saying that the eyes is going to be difficult to heal. So the family called upon us to say whether we can go in to help heal the eyes. And yeah, the Arcturians came in, they reconnect the tissues, they actually help to make sure that the blood vessels are going to be functioning and all that. And it's good to hear she didn't lose her eyesight after that. She actually has her eyesight recovered, right? There was also another case where there was an accident with the wrist. She already feeling a lot of numb, and she couldn't really, she wasn't sure whether her fingers are going to be functional or dexterous. And so again, the Arcturians stepped in. But I had one case where the Arcturians helped, and I know that this is really unconventional for them to help this way, was because there was this guy who had a past life as a warrior, but from a more advanced civilization, where as a warrior, he was caught as a prisoner of war, And they basically cut open and split open his brain, and they want to extract information from him, such that they're always poking electrical things into his brain. So of course he doesn't know that, and then he came to us for healing because there were moments where he was very suicidal, and he was also not able to be functional in his daily life because anything sharp freaks him out, be it knife, forks, be it sharp pencil. And just imagine, like, when you have such deep phobia of sharp things, he wasn't really functional. Couldn't go to any social event without, like, being wide-eyed, deer in the headlight, looking out for sharp things, right? So to get to the bottom of that, of course, they did channeling and also learned that it was in his past life that created the root of his problem of being afraid of the sharp things. And that's when the Arcturians say that, okay, unprecedented, they are actually going to erase that part of the memory. Usually don't do that, right? But they said that, look, this part of the memory is not really useful and helpful to keep. He may remember that he is a warrior. He may remember that he's been tortured, but he don't need to remember the pain of that torture. So they remove that part of the memory. And after that, he was functional. So these are some of the work that the Arcturians have stepped in to really support our clients and the cases that we've been working on. So that was pretty, I guess, big contribution to a lot of things that we do. Pleiadians. Do y'all have any experience with Pleiadians?
They're fun.
They always feel kind of like watery to me. I don't know, like they're very squishy.
Yeah. They actually do a lot of contribution to the shamans. The shamans and a lot of their practices actually, like for example, you hear about the grandmothers, the seven sisters, they're all from Pleiades. So they have been active in also helping us with a lot of spiritual growth, spiritual development. And I think a lot of what they've taught, that sacred text, is actually kept by the shamans. Like, the shamans who actually do a lot of healing for Mother Earth. And then they have a lot of, like, gatherings and a lot of practices. Those are a lot of sacred practices that was left behind by the shamans. Yeah. So wow.
What I'm picking up is that sometimes they are one of the nations that really understand a bit more the human consciousness or like the human emotions too. Like they have much more, like I would say, not necessarily empathy, but they understand a little bit more the logic.
Or the non-logic.
Yeah, with an online, it was like ask other nations, they're looking at us like they just like, why? And so I get it, like they have like more, I think they have more senses, like they have like a physical more body sensations, if I can describe it like that. So this is where I feel like they can relate a little bit more to sometimes the understanding what's going on with mankind. Or why we're doing this or something like that. And I think that if you understand like your best friend, or if you understand like one part, family or buddy, why they're reacting like that, they usually you're more supportive. And I think like Pleiadians, they're usually like also like they're not reluctant to cut, like they're usually one of the first Arcturians are there. But I say Pleiadians, they're very often, well, from my experience, I don't know about you guys, but like they're usually the one to go to.
I was just doing a quick research on the place where the Andromeda's stones or the rocks were there. Go look up on, I'm not too sure how to pronounce this, and I'm definitely going to spoil the actual pronunciation, but I left it in the chat. Whoever wants to attempt pronounce it.
You can put it in the chat. You know
Put
what?
it.
Copy, paste.
I did. It's in the chat right now.
Okay.
No,
Oh.
let me send it. Let me send it. Yeah. Okay.
Oh my gosh.
I don't know how to pronounce
Oh, put oh, you should put it in the YouTube chat as well.
it. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh,
Somebody can do that.
Podubrav.
I think
It's
I need
not
to.
English pronunciation friendly.
Yeah. So that's where we can go find those rocks that were from Andromeda. So
It's gonna be
Okay,
a P.
I was
Oh, you can say it?
you know wait for this moment I need this.
P-O-D.
Podobravie. I'm sorry guys for like they will correct me probably on Monday when I go back to work. I'll like so okay, so yes, it's something Slavish or something like that. Yeah,
Yeah.
Bosniak. Bosniak. Okay, but Savito. Okay, that's the city, sorry. But Podobravie. Okay, that's the best
Yeah.
I can do
Okay.
for now.
Yeah, that's gonna
But
be
they're not best.
Podubravlje.
So good for Scrabble.
So let's talk about the angels, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there were actually many different types of angels, but of course, like when I first started my spiritual work, the angels that I first have, deep connection with is my own guardian angel. And then of course, I started learning about all the different types of angels with different responsibilities and different work that they are in charge of. But my first experience was this time when I was in Australia and I went to stay in a friend's house, and his house is opposite a cemetery. And just before dinner, we decided to walk around there. And then we prepared for bed. I remember in the middle of the night, that's when one of the spirits came to my ears and literally went, boom, ghost. And of course, I woke up, right? My eyes wide. And I see this shimmery green energy. And she was shaking my duvet and going like, I need your help. I need your help. And at the time, I was like barely 20. And I was like, I'm here because I want to get away from the city to study, so I can't help you, right? And then they were like, no, you can help us, you can help us. And they were shaking my duvet. And here I'm thinking, probably I'm shivering, but it's actually them shaking my duvet. And that's when I go, angels, guardian angel, if you're there, can you please invite them to leave? And that's when I felt the presence, where the presence of my guardian angel rise and becoming really big, and then inviting them to leave. And that was my first experience of having the angel presence to support me and help me in moments of like when I'm freaked out. But yeah, they often come to help us. And as I mentioned earlier, there were also like I soon started learning that they have all sorts of different responsibilities. So for a lot of the work that we do, right, we have to help ensure that the souls that were departed and going to the light, and I often call upon the boatmen. So sometimes the boatmen have to explain to me their responsibilities. It's quite interesting because I remember once I was so excited when this whole channeling team got together, and I was so excited when I wanted to learn about soul family and all that. And then the boatman decided to come forward to share with me that soul family, how they got together and all that, right? And I started bombarding him with a lot of questions, and that's when he goes, "I'm just a boatman, man." Like, okay.
I just work here.
Exactly. Exactly. So that's when I learned that the boatmen, they are the ones who actually after the soul has been processed and agreed where they need to be reborn. And that's when all the boatmen from the different part of the galaxy will go pick them up and deliver them. Deliver them to the mummies, or the mummy and daddy to the families, and then also pick up all those who are supposed to go to the light those who have transitioned. And that's when there's a lot of the work that we do, right? When we go to the disaster site, pick up all those souls who didn't even realize that they have transitioned or departed. And that's when the boatmen are there to pick them up. So these are some of the angels that I feel that we tend to work a lot closely with. But of course, there's the archangels. And I'll let you girls talk about the archangels.
All right. So yeah, I was just about to be like, oh, is she gonna like mention any of the named angels? But yeah, I think with sort of like channeling the angels, for me, it's interesting because again, same thing with aliens. This is like my whole thing tonight is like I had no prior experience with this concept. I don't come from a religious background, so whenever anyone would talk about angels, I'm like, okay, that's your religious thing, not my business. But they still come through anyway when I'm channeling, so uh apparently it is my business, or at least just for the communication portion of things. Mm, I think similar to what we said, where there was like Commander Ashtar and then specific star nations, and how the energy of a group feels a little bit different from a specific entity. It feels similarly when we sort of feel like generally angels coming through. So, like you said, when we work on some of the cases where we're not looking at an individual client, but clearing an area or clearing a disaster or something like that, then the sense of the presence is a large group coming in. And then if they speak as like a large group of angels, then it has that same feeling as when like Arcturians come through, in that there's a bunch. And so then when it comes to the archangels, that's when their energy feels more specific. And I actually do remember on one occasion when I was over at your place, Teresa, where you were asking me like we were working, first for context, we were working on the logo, which we channeled on that particular day. And then you asked me if I had ever considered my own perception, my own extrasensory perception. And I was kind of like, I don't know. And then you asked me to try it by like taking a look at you. And then I noticed this really sort of large, grand presence like standing next to you. And you asked me like, is it a guide or what? And I was like, I don't know, but it feels like it has wings. It just feels really big, so maybe. And then you said, okay, now instead of like using your perception, channel it. And then it turned out, I think it was Archangel Metatron, right? And then he basically told us he was there because of us working on the logo. And then you asked him, Archangel Metatron, what does the cube mean? Metatron's cube. And I remember hearing my own voice in my head being like, I don't know the answer to that question. How am I supposed to do this? I don't know how to answer. But thankfully I was like, okay, it's not okay, self, ego, whatever. Should like you're not the one being asked to answer the question, so just like calm down, let me do the channeling. But I don't remember it clearly because again, the whole channeling and memory thing, but I remember him saying that it was kind of like a map or like a model for like navigating
A vehicle.
yeah, or like the earth. Yeah, I just remember something about a map, but that was definitely really interesting. Especially again, that whole thing of like being able to notice my own reaction and then the being's reaction to the question. Yeah.
Yeah, that's very interesting about all the different archangels, because as we start channeling them, when we channel, we are not speaking on their behalf. We allow their essence, their thoughts, their beings to come through, which is why, Sydney, you're able to have your own thoughts and I go, okay, surrender my own thoughts and just lend my voice to them, right?
Yeah.
So that's where I learned a lot more about the angels. I will share a bit more about Archangel Michael
Mm.
later, but I would like to hear from Annie your experiences with the angels.
Well, that was pretty much my first meetup, I would say, officially, where I knew there was something big coming. It was the first time I channeled the first being, first being, that came up to me and face to face. There was no session. I was walking and peacefully admiring the nature, and then all of a sudden my mouth just say Metatron, and I never heard that name before, didn't know where it came from, and I just wrote it down like, that's funny, but I had the impression like it was like really a meetup, and for me, it was my call. It was like official. I started to look for like who's Metatron. Like my husband, I was in United States at that time. So I called my husband. It's like, hey, you know what? Like, what's funny today? I just like, my mouth said Metatron. It's like, I gave you a card. He's an archangel. Do you have it in your wallet? Remember? It's like, I'm looking. It's like, oh yeah. Sorry. Sorry. So, and then from that point, like, I searched a little bit like, what's the meaning? Well, like, where is he like go to? Like, what's his like is domain, or like how do you say like his field, or like, and I remember like, oh, okay, mostly helping people working with duality, and accepting. I'm like accepting there's not just right or wrong. There's like different shades of gray. And then and I started to understand a little bit more of my experience of this life, and uh, and accepting also that that I was channeling. So that was like for high surprise. So what do I do next? And I guess I've been inspired to do a little bit more research, and then I met you also,
That's
Teresa.
beautiful.
Wow.
I think it was like the most within the same year. We met in Pula, we met already, and then there was this experience that was the same year. And then there was a lot of energy, and I didn't know what to do with. But thank you, Metatron and Teresa. I was able to start to do some research. So I started to do some research about archangels. Okay, and I know what you're going to say about that, Teresa, what's coming up. But for me, it was like mostly interested. I found a site where there was like 15 of them. Some of them said 7, some of them said other numbers according to which religion or whatever. But I was mostly curious because I was picking up on other energies. I was feeling Uriel, Zachiel, Shamuel. Then like after Metatron, like there was boom, 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 boom. Like I was feeling sometimes very specific energy. Then I would look up for them. I was like, okay, I think I'm feeling you now. So from this part of my own story, I will let Teresa maybe add up her own spices to the archangels.
So cool.
So my experience was specifically one time when I was working with Chongsoon, because I thought we want to bring a course forward to share a bit more about working with the angels. So we need to channel and understand from the angels, like how do we, present them, represent them, talk about them, and how people want to work with them. And to be honest, Archangel Michael came and he's a bit like, seriously, if you just want to work with us, you don't need a course. You just simply need to, by intention, will come. And I'm like, but really, we're humans. We need to learn more, right? He said, just use your intention. So anyway, that's Archangel Michael's way of looking at things. But that's when I got curious and wanted to learn more about the angel's realm. And one of the things that surprised me, so in a lot of things, right, that we learn about the angels, they always think of Michael as the protector. And that if you're in danger, call upon Archangel Michael's protection. And the truth of the matter is that he is actually not responsible for protection. He is here responsible for clarity. And Archangel Michael was very kind. He said, like, maybe I am protecting you from confusion because I do give you clarity. I was like, Archangel Michael, you're not protector. So who's protecting us every time we call out to the Archangel Michael, come protect us, right? And he's like, it's just all by intention. The protection angels will step in. I was like, oh, okay, it's not your legions of protectors. So there's a few things about the angels I learned more from Archangel Michael. In his sharing with me, there's only 5 archangels. I know that in many texts and in many books and many other things out there, there's more than 5. And there are many, many different names for them, right? But from Archangel Michael in our own channeling, there is Archangel Raphael, which is, yeah, we didn't get it wrong that he's actually responsible for healing.
Yes.
And then there is Archangel Gabriel. And then there's also Melchizedek and
Okay, you have to write down this one because
Melchizedek. Yeah,
Melchizedek.
Say
That
what?
one's such a complicated word.
So
when he comes up in channeling, it's like, oh, bleh.
so that's what happened to Chong Sun, right? He's like, I can't pronounce this thing. Pronounce it, and then it gets so wrong, but it's Melchizedek. Yeah, so 9 archangels of that angels of their responsibility, where they work really closely with us on humans and our humanity, and helping us. And here's the other thing that he shared with us that I found very, very interesting. It was actually like, who's actually really answering prayers? Right? A lot of us pray, right? We pray, and then generally we just pray to God, right? I was like, God, help me with this, God, help me with that, right? But who is really answering the prayers?
I don't know. I don't see how God would be able to, though.
Yeah, exactly, because God doesn't take side, right?
Yeah, it's just everything energy. So
He's
I'm
everything.
like,
yeah.
If you're like, please get me a job, it's like, but everything.
Yeah. If I give you a job, what about the other person who's also praying to me, right? So actually, the prayers are sometimes answered by the angels, and sometimes it's also answered by the likes of Jesus, Mother Mary, or Guan Yin, or all the other I guess sentient beings, ascended masters. If they hear it and they feel that they could step in to help, they will come forward and support us with that.
Oh
So
my gosh.
some of the interesting things that Archangel Michael shared. So during that session, I was like, Archangel, Archangel Michael, like there's so many misrepresentation of you. I want to correct that. Like, for example, like I remember like there are some people who want to say that Michael or Michelangelo, Archangel Michelangelo, all that, right? He'll be like, actually just Michael. so there are other people who goes like, Archangel Michelangelo is not Archangel Michael, but he will confirm that it's just Michael. So there are things like that I learned from him. So as I mentioned earlier, I was like, there are so many things about you that we got it wrong, and I want to go correct that. He's like, look, Violet Ray, you're not here to rewrite history, and a lot of things are working anyway, right? And we understand your intention, and we will come and help just by your intention. So there's no need to go rewrite history and correct everybody. We are here to help. And he has his own legions, and all the archangels actually do have their own legions who step in to help us. So those are some of the interesting things that I've learned from our dear Archangel Michael. Yeah.
So cool.
The whole prayer thing reminds me of this Family Guy episode. There's this clip where I think it was like Peter is praying for something. And then it comes true and he goes, thank you, Jesus. And then Jesus goes, oh no, it wasn't me. And then Vishnu comes in and goes, it's okay, I'm used to it.
It is so true. It is so true.
Like you don't know which being is actually answering.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter. The beings are just happy to support and help because they have made an agreement to help and help support us with our spiritual growth, and just allowing us to experience humanity, right? So they're happy to step in to support us, and they're not humans with our human ego where like you have to give credit where credit is due. They don't really mind or really care at all. So they're just happy to help. Yeah.
They have no ego.
Yeah,
There's no.
they have no
Ah,
yeah. And that's when we often personify them like us. Like, we sometimes especially like when we pray, right? Oh, if you grant me to get 4 A's for my exam, I promise you I'll go to church more often. Or I'll promise you that I'll do more charity, right? How often when we pray like this, like I hear a lot of people praying like that with it as a form of negotiation and bargain. I'm like, why do you pray like this, right? It is
You should
not.
pray like that to your parents. It will work.
Yeah.
mm,
And then that's very often we also make them out to be pretty petty. Like if we don't, give thanks back to them or something, right? It makes them we humanize these sentient beings or ascended masters. I mean, the fact of the matter is that they are ascended. They are already not like caught up in our need for validation or think that we are not good enough and we need that external validation. It doesn't work like that with them.
They operate differently.
Yeah. So I think before we end, I want to talk a lot about, I want to talk a bit about like how, we work with them for our spiritual growth or to how do we work with them in general. I really shared a little like with the archangels, it's just or with the angels generally, it's just by intention, right? What about with the aliens? How do we work with them? And why do we want to work with them?
It feels natural.
Yeah, it does feel natural. We tend to take them for granted. Like every time we're in trouble, we go take aliens and angels together.
Yes.
Is that in a lot of the work we do, especially the intergalactic work, I'm just wondering, is the life still going
Um,
or has it
yeah,
stopped? Because
I see it on my end.
no,
Mine too.
is this okay? Good.
Yeah, we're alive.
So for a lot of the work that we do, right, there are certain things that the star nations can go in to support and help, and then the angels will help at a different level. Do you remember a lot of the cases, especially when we go back to rescue souls that have been kidnapped?
Yeah, that's true. So I think, oh wow, I feel like oftentimes when like we have the angels coming through and then different groups for the aliens, I don't recall having them in at the same time very much.
So okay, so for my experience, like say for example, we're there to rescue a soul that has been kidnapped,
Yeah.
the other entity, right? That's when the star nations would give us intel of where they can locate like a GPS, where they
Yeah.
locate the soul, where is it, right? Or where the soul fragment is. And then they would move in to collect the soul fragment back to the body. And then that's when the angels will come in to maybe comfort or give healing if they need something more gentle. But sometimes
Yeah.
Mary or even the Arcturians will come in for something more serious, like realigning the blueprint, especially if they've been very hurt and stuff like that. So they do team up and they do work together as a team. And I really like that when we actually doing our work, that we have so many different groups to call upon to support us and help us.
Yeah. It feels like it's like different parts of the process because it's in the example that you've given. Often if there's some sort of soul retrieval work to be done, then depending on the reason why we need to do that, then oftentimes we'll start to see the star nations come in, um or the angels, depending. But often, like, it seems like oftentimes when it's like the actual retrieval process, or like locating
Mm,
it, or if there's anything that's like there blocking us from retrieving it, then like they'll come in to either help us like remove that thing, or like deactivate it, or
mm,
get around it, or whatever that may be.
yeah. I
I
remember.
feel they often do the final touch. I find the angels like very
Yeah.
often spontaneous. Like the first star nations will come up, and then the surgery will take in.
The surgery. Yeah.
Like, do you have the scan? Do you have like the diagnose, and then you have the treatment and the soothing part, or the nurturing and caring and loving is very like, or the suturing is very
Yeah.
often. Well, I don't know. You can correct me, but I feel like that the angels are usually taking over that part.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I also find that when we are clearing the souls from the, say, the areas of tragedies, right?
Yeah.
Very
Mhm.
often the legions of angels will come by to gather up the souls and say that it's time to go. You don't have to be stuck in this trauma for all the centuries or for so long. And that's when the angels will come in. And very often, like also the ascended masters will come in, like Mother Mary, Buddha, especially. They will come in to, help, because a lot of souls, one, they don't even realize they're dead, right? And then they're not willing to leave because they're waiting for their child, or they're there because of their responsibility to guard the land. So they feel that
Mm.
leave yet. So there's a lot of these things that need a lot of persuasion from, say, we're the angels, we're here to make you feel safe and it's time for you to go. Yeah, so that's where I find that they come in to support that very often. Yeah.
Mm.
So any things that you want to close with about the aliens or the angels?
Well, I guess with what Annie was saying, I felt like the metaphor was like, oftentimes the aliens come in and they're like the surgeons or the doctors, and then we have the angels come in more like the therapists or the rehabilitation guys, to be like, all right, now that you're done with surgery and everything, and you're trying to be like walk again, we're gonna like get you through it so that you can
Reintegration. Yes.
yeah, reintegrating. Yeah.
Ah,
You brought up a
yes.
really good point. I just want to add that the angels have worked with me to open a school for the eagles. So, like, and this is a different topic altogether, but
Oh my
we'll talk
gosh.
about it in the future, where, the eagle has a very tough job, right? Like, we have a higher self, we have a soul, and then there's the ego. And the ego has a very tough job, especially in the the time we're living in, with so much, social media and distractions, and the ego is really confused on how to do its job. And that's when the Archangel Michael and team has actually helped me open up a school to send the eagles to learn and study, so that they could do their job better as an eagle. So I thought that was pretty nice of the angels to do that. Yeah,
Oh, cool.
You
yeah.
already have a concept for another
Topic.
session. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
topic.
All of these
Yeah.
like schools and things,
Yeah.
and education that happens. Yeah.
So any words from you before we close off the session about the aliens or the angels?
I'm looking forward for our next session.
Oh,
Yeah,
next.
but today was like one of my topics. We can continue for hours, but I would really appreciate the interaction if people are looking and watching, still watching. If you're still watching, I'll say thumbs up.
Oh yeah.
Leave a comment, subscribe, and then I'd love to know like what's the interaction from people, but also their own experience of what they live. So
Mm.
yeah.
Yeah. So I guess, my final thing before we close off the session is that, working with the Star Nations, a lot of them, because they have been on Earth and watching us grow and watching us develop, right? We are still very young as humans, right? Because a lot of our DNA were contributed by them. It was to support a lot of the souls to want a different type of experience. That's why they developed this for humanity to come to learn more and experience more of what the souls can experience in this body, this earth. So a lot of them feel very responsible because they have contributed to our DNA and to the shaping of what Earth is. As I mentioned earlier about Andromeda, where they actually contributed all those big, gigantic, humongous rocks that actually gives out resonance frequencies to support life and development of Earth, right? From the very beginning, when Earth was just a crust, right? So they've done that, and a lot of our DNAs I mentioned before. So a lot of them actually feel very responsible, in watching how we grow and how we developed, right? And also our relationship with Mother Gaia and all that. So they actually they did leave behind a lot of wisdom, a lot of sacred texts for us to learn from. But unfortunately, a lot of them has gone missing, and a lot of them has been lost. So right now, if we reach out to them, the Arcturians or the Pleiadians or the Andromedans or even like Commander Ashtar and all that, they're very willing to give us more information and knowledge to help us develop and grow spiritually. So that's with the star nations. But also with the angels, right? Of course, each of them have their different roles, and they're also there to protect us, to guide us, to help us. And we just simply have to reach out by intention, and they will be there with us, right? And that actually goes for all the star nations as well. So before we end, I just want each and every one of those audience to not be so unfamiliar with the aliens, the star nations, and the angels, because they actually are very, very willing to work with us, and they are happy to work with us. They want to work with us. So that's my final say for today. So next week, we're actually going to talk about something that's quite interesting. So I know the channelers are not ready. Like as in, like they have not been formed. So
Yeah, I don't know.
now. So
Like,
next week we're going to talk about ghosts, spirits, and the deceased relative, or dead relative,
Deceased. Yeah, okay.
the dead relatives. So I think that's going to be a very interesting topic. But
Very personal to people.
definitely personal.
mhm.
And a lot of them, we have our own personal experience that we can share.
Yeah.
And also in a lot of the cases that we do, they do show up and come up quite regularly. So with that, thank you, girls. So good to see you
Thank you,
all.
Teresa, for another good chat.
We'll chat soon again.
That was fun.
Yes, I'm going to end this live now.
Bye.
Ciao.
Bye, everybody. Okay. That